888-727-BCK. 888-727 Beck. The CEO of Edmunds.com, which has been named the best car research site by Forbes, selected by consumers as the most useful website according to every J.D. Power and Associates auto shopper. Jeremy Anwill is on the phone. Edmunds is not... Jeremy, let me ask you this. You're not a partisan group. You have nothing to do with politics or anything else. You're just a car site.
Yeah, fundamentally a consumer car site, right.
Okay. And you did research on the Cash for Clunkers thing.
Yeah, we do. We actually are in a nice position because we look at a lot of the transactions that are occurring at car dealers across country. We look at what's happening on the internet, and we're able to do an analysis on a whole variety of areas. I think the analysis you're talking about is one we released yesterday, which was sort of a look back at Cash for Clunkers and really what was the impact.
What was the impact?
Well, there's a couple things that we saw. I mean, the big question anytime there's any sort of incentive, whether it's an incentive from the manufacturers or in this case an incentive from the government, is what would have happened if the incentive wasn't in the marketplace? And it's kind of a tricky thing to get at, but our statisticians actually came up with a pretty novel idea, and that was that we could, because if you look at Cash for Clunkers, it was a pretty complicated program. Not every vehicle qualified. And that and this is a little complicated, but by looking at the relationship between the vehicles that did qualify and the vehicles that didn't, both before, during, and after, you're actually able to mathematically create a picture that says, well, here's what would have happened if we didn't have Cash for Clunkers, and here's obviously what did happen. And then by comparing the two, you can do some simple math that says, well, you know what, as the result of this program, cost about $2.8 billion, we ended up selling in the neighborhood of 125,000 units that wouldn't have been sold this year anyway.
So then how much you ready for this, America? Strap yourself in. How much did Cash for Clunkers cost America per vehicle that is a car that wasn't going to be purchased?
Yeah, that's the key thing. So in terms of cars that would have been that were not going to be sold anyway this year, it's somewhere in the neighborhood of $24,000. So it's obviously a lot of money.
Okay, wait. We spent, as taxpayers, $24,000 per vehicle for cars that weren't going to be sold.
Anyway, yeah. That's pretty normal. When you look at the math on any kind of incentive program, the numbers get very scary. They're usually in the tens of thousands of dollars. So this, in some ways, is no different than most incentives.
Yeah, but this is a taxpayer incentive.
That's the big...
I mean, if the car company, if the auto manufacturer wants to take the loss, fine, whatever. But that's us.
Well, I think that's one reason why a lot of car companies like the Cash for Clunkers.
Yeah, of course. So $24,000. What was the average price of the cars that were sold?
About the same, actually. Somewhere in the low 20s. I mean, you could be a real skeptic and say, hey, why don't we just give cars away? Obviously, you wouldn't know who the incremental buyers were, so that's not possible. But it certainly makes a point.
I don't care who the buyer. Why not just give away the cars? I'm sorry to be real skeptical here. Why not just give away the cars? Why wouldn't we? This is crazy. Now let me follow up with this.
Mm-hmm.
What's happening now that we have all of the 09s coming out? I mean, the 2010s coming out.
Yeah.
We had the 2009s that were sold. Now we have all these new cars that was inventory. That was past inventory. Right. Tell me what we have coming offline, and how is the auto industry doing, and how are the car dealerships doing now that Cash for Clunkers is over?
Well, there's a couple things happening. One is that right in the aftermath, the program ended the end of August, last week of August, the car sales really plummeted. So the month of August and September were pretty poor. From a consumer perspective, it was not a great time to be buying, because one of the things that happened through the program is inventories got very light and prices actually jumped up. So it hasn't really been reported, but if you bought a car, say, the beginning or middle of August, you paid on the average $500 to $1,000 more than you would have done otherwise, just because inventories were tight, and this is all about supply and demand. So if you had a clunker, that wasn't so bad, because you got an extra $2,000 or $3,000 more than your car was worth. But if you did not have a clunker, you ended up paying that premium anyway. So from a consumer perspective, that's not great news. If you're a dealer, that's great news, because obviously they want to make as much money as possible. So the inventories got very tight. But it was a little bit unbalanced. So one of the things we're seeing this month is that there's still some remaining 2009s out there, and the manufacturers, I think, that are going to be doing the best in October are the ones that still have those cars on sale. Big question is going to be going forward, how are the 2010s received? Because the discounts won't be as great and prices might be a little bit higher, and that's really key to the economy.
How about we change the meaning of clunkers to mean cars you purchased in the summer of 2009, and we do another cash for clunker.
$100,000 per vehicle this time.
That would be great.
That's a good idea. You get
4 times as good.
You get a car and a down payment on a house.
There you go.
How about my box for mid-range vehicles? We give everybody a $450,000 Maybach for your mid-range sedan.
Can I put that money instead toward a Veyron?
No. You have to have a Maybach.
All right.
What do you think?
Well, I think the point you're raising is an interesting one, and that is that these things are slippery slopes. So when you start sort of stimulating one area of the economy, why not other ones? So why not a program for RV dealers or furniture companies? Or there's a lot of people that we're hurting.
We have, believe it or not, we have cash for appliances coming.
Yeah, we do. I know that was baked into the stimulus package.
Yeah. All right. Thank you so much. I appreciate it, Jeremy.
Sure, anytime.
You bet. Bye-bye.